There's a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when a person's grip on life softens. It might be the way their breath begins to wander, or how their hand, once clutched tight, finally rests open. In those final moments, something profound unfolds, the tension between holding on and letting go. For the dying and for those who love them, this edge is sacred. It's where time slows and presence sharpens. And it's here, in this in-between, that we're faced with a question that has no easy answer. When is it time to release? And how do we ever begin? It was a dim afternoon in early spring, the kind where the light slants in like a whispered memory. In a small hospice room tucked behind a flowering dogwood tree, Michael lay still beneath a soft cotton blanket. He was 59, once a jazz pianist with quick hands and a quicker wit. Now, cancer had taken its toll, his body thin, his voice a breath, his world reduced to the rhythm of morphine and murmured visits. Beside him sat Anna, his younger sister, fingers laced through his, knuckles white. For days she'd kept vigil, reading old postcards aloud, playing his favorite Thelonious Monk tracks on a tinny speaker, brushing his thinning hair back from his brow. Their conversations had grown quieter over the weeks, then shorter, and now lived mostly in silence. But her presence never wavered. Michael had stopped eating. His kidneys had begun to fail. The hospice nurse had gently said what Anna already knew: it wouldn't be long now. Yet even as the body slowed, something in Michael seemed tethered, like he hadn't quite given permission to go. And Anna, she wasn't sure if she had either. The room held a stillness that felt alive, not empty. A stillness that breathed between the two of them, Anna and Michael, as if silence itself had stepped in to speak where words had failed. Anna didn't know what to say anymore. She had already said she loved him, already said it was okay to go even if part of her didn't mean it. Now she sat with him the way you sit with a child falling asleep, watching, waiting, not wanting to disturb the fragile edge between here and somewhere else. Michael hadn't opened his eyes all day. But when Anna squeezed his hand, his thumb moved, barely, but it moved. A reply not with words but with presence, a quiet acknowledgement that he still knew she was there, that maybe he was still deciding. In that moment, Anna realized she wasn't just watching him die. She was part of his leaving. Her being there mattered. Her willingness to let go or not mattered. And suddenly, the question wasn't just about Michael's readiness, it was about hers too. The next morning, light poured in softer than before. The air in the room felt looser, like something had shifted overnight. Michael's breathing had changed, less labored, more spaced out. Each inhale seemed to ask, "Is this the one?" Each exhale seemed to whisper, "Not yet." Anna sat beside him, a mug of tea cooling in her hands, untouched. The nurse had come and gone, gently adjusting his pillows, checking his skin, offering a knowing nod that required no words. They both recognized what was happening. The body was settling. Letting go breath by breath, Michael's jaw had slackened, his shoulders no longer clenched. Even his brow, once furrowed with pain or memory or some mixture of both, had smoothed. He looked younger somehow, less like a man dying and more like someone easing into a long-awaited rest. Anna leaned in close and pressed her forehead to his. She didn't speak. She just breathed with him, matched his rhythm, listened not just to his lungs, but to what they were saying without words. It's okay, and this time she believed it. It happened mid-afternoon, without ceremony. The sky outside had gone from grey to gold, a brief clearing in an otherwise overcast day. A ray of sun filtered through the curtain's edge, catching the dust in the air and painting it like mist. Michael's eyes opened. Not wide, not startled, just enough to find her. They were clouded now, but still his, warm, searching, familiar. Anna felt the breath catch in her chest. She hadn't expected them to open again. She met his gaze, held it with everything she had. There were no tears. Not yet. Just a quiet awe. Michael blinked once, slowly. His lips parted like he might say something, but no sound came. Still, Anna heard him. She nodded. "I know," she whispered. "Me too." That look, fleeting, final, wasn't a goodbye exactly. It was something deeper, a recognition, a last turning toward life and toward her before turning away. A final silent gratitude. Then his eyes closed gently like a curtain falling at the end of a song. There was no warning, no swell of music, no final gasp, just the slow widening space between breaths, until there were no more. Anna didn't notice at first. She had been brushing a fingertip along the edge of his knuckles, tracing the veins that once pulsed with rhythm and life. She thought he was asleep, peaceful, and he was. Then the quiet grew too full, the stillness too complete. She looked up. His chest no longer rose. His mouth was slightly open, the corners soft. No struggle, no tension. Just a profound stillness, the kind that doesn't ask permission. The kind that fills a room with something larger than grief. Anna leaned in and placed her hand over his heart, waiting for what she knew wouldn't come. The absence thundered in her ears, and yet, beneath the ache, there was a gentleness. Michael hadn't fought, he hadn't clung. In the end, he had let go. Like a leaf easing from a branch, natural, inevitable, beautiful in its surrender, Anna stayed with him. Minutes passed. She didn't cry, not yet. She just sat in the silence, breathing for them both. After the nurse confirmed what Anna already knew, time seemed to slow, then stall. The world outside continued. Cars hummed in the distance, a bird chirped nearby. But inside that room everything stood still. The body that had held Michael, his laughter, his music, his late-night stories, was now just that, a body. Still, Anna couldn't look away. She studied his face, memorizing what peace looked like. She traced the outline of his hand, now cooling beneath hers, and felt the strange truth of it all. He was gone, and somehow still here. On the bedside table sat a small notebook he used to carry, filled with half-songs and scattered thoughts. Anna opened it with trembling hands. One line, scribbled in his looping script, caught her. "Don't be afraid of the dark, sometimes it's just the light turned down." She closed her eyes. Grief didn't rush in all at once. It came in waves, like a tide rising slowly, touching everything. But alongside it came something else, an almost holy stillness, a sense that what had passed between them was not undone by death, that love, once formed, does not disappear. It remains quietly in the folds of memory and marrow. In the days that followed, Anna found herself returning to the hospice room in her mind, not to relive the pain, but to revisit the spaces between, the unspoken moments where forgiveness had passed between them like breath. She had been angry once. Years ago, Michael had disappeared into his music and his silence when their mother died. Anna had been left to pick up the pieces, the bills, the care. They never fully talked about it. Never needed to, it seemed. But in those last weeks, especially, in those last hours, something shifted. The night before he passed, when his voice had faded to a whisper, he had squeezed her hand and mouthed, "I'm sorry." She hadn't replied then, not with words. But now, in the quiet aftermath, she let herself feel what she hadn't allowed herself to speak. She forgave him, fully. Not just because he was gone, but because he had asked, because he had stayed, in his own way, at the end. And because love, real love, eventually makes room for mercy. Forgiveness, she realized, wasn't about erasing the past. It was about releasing the grip it had on her, letting go just as he had. Grief is a strange teacher. It doesn't speak in lectures or offer clear answers. It arrives quietly, stays longer than you'd like, and leaves traces in places you didn't expect. But if you listen, really listen, it carries wisdom. In the weeks after Michael's death, Anna found herself moving more slowly. She noticed small things again, how the morning light touched the windowsill, how a certain song could shift the air in a room. Life hadn't become easier, but it had become sharper somehow, more honest. She thought often about that final moment, the way Michael had surrendered, not out of defeat, but out of trust. Trust in her, in the process, in something larger than either of them. He had taught her that death wasn't just an end, it was a return. Not to some faraway heaven necessarily, but to the essence of things, to stillness, to love. And perhaps the most unexpected lesson of all, that in losing him she hadn't truly lost everything. What he gave her in those final hours, presence. Peace, forgiveness would remain, not as a ghost but as a guide, not gone. Just changed. Some goodbyes don't sound like farewells. They arrive quietly, in the spaces between a final breath and the next beat of a heart still breaking open. Anna would carry Michael's death with her, but not as a wound, more like a thread, woven gently through the fabric of her days. In the silence that followed, in the songs he once played, in the way the sun filtered through the trees, he was there. Not haunting her, but reminding her that love matters, that being present matters, that letting go when the time comes is one of the deepest acts of love we'll ever be asked to offer. We like to imagine control at the end. We ask questions: when, how, what to say, what to hold. But sometimes the deepest grace is in the not knowing, in sitting beside someone you love, breathing with them and letting the moment lead. Michael left as gently as he lived, his final lesson not in words, but in the way he softened into the leaving. And Anna stayed, not to hold him back, but to walk him all the way to the edge. Then, finally, to let him go. If this story touched something in you, consider subscribing for more quiet reflections on life, loss, and the love that remains.